So welcome, welcome everyone to the Gospel of Thomas meeting, and great that you're here, that you decided to join. And so the Gospel of Thomas is a door. It's a portal. That's what I discovered in preparing for this, or even receiving the idea. I received the idea with, oh, I never heard about it. And then started looking at it, and yeah, I see that doors are opening to information that I didn't have before, and with that, pearls and gifts that I didn't know existed. And that's really great, and especially with this, pretty recently discovered in 1940s. It was discovered somewhere in Egypt, the scrolls of Thomas, and say investigating it, they were researching it and discovering, like, oh my God, these are actually expressions of Jesus of Nazareth. How wonderful is that? And then, yeah, it slowly but certainly, say, was shared in the world. So people were starting to write books about it and all this, and putting it together, translating it into English, for instance, and into French, and in all kinds of languages in the end. But seeing that where it came from actually was the note, yeah, like a notebook of Thomas. And this is great. Like Thomas is, yeah, Thomas is Thomas. Thomas is one of the disciples of Jesus, but yeah, what do we know about him actually, except that he was doubting? That's a very limited perspective of one of the disciples, like one of the 12. So it's like we're missing something here with the idea of Thomas. Thomas was not just a doubting disciple. And so what does that mean for ourselves in trying to look at it from a whole perspective? You could say it's like you miss one of the 12 rays in your consciousness in order to get a complete picture of the totality of you. Like you cannot just dismiss one of the 12 rays of light that are available. You can say, like, well, I like Matthew better, or give me Luke. Yeah, Luke was the healer, and that's interesting. But Thomas, no, he was the doubter. So it's like he does not seem to have a very good reputation in the established Christianity, you could say. So that's completely changed. That is completely changing when you actually look at what he is writing down and what he actually did with Jesus. Like he was something else in the whole, say, alliance of disciples, in the whole brotherhood of disciples. And it is, like I said, it is a portal. So what you're going to hear in the episodes that are coming up, and what you're going to discover today, for instance, like to start with it right away, is in fact the portal Thomas. Like there's really something there for you to open up in yourself that you didn't know was so incredibly, rejuvenating, in fact. Like it really is like revitalizing something in you. Also, like maybe the biggest thing is acceptance of yourself. Like he was one of the 12, so he did doubt sometimes too. Like, yeah, he had his ups and downs, of course. Does that make him a bad disciple? No, of course not. So this say self-image that you see reflected in Thomas it's great to recognize, like, hey, yeah, I can just be myself. I really can be myself and still, say, be a disciple or an apostle, if you want. It's like I can still be a total part of this. It does not have anything to do with my difficulties or my limited possibilities, or who knows what you think about yourself. So, and I think for that, Thomas is absolutely a portal, a beautiful way to open a door that gives you so much, that is in fact a representation of an maybe denied light that is present in you. So that's a different intro than I expected myself to express, but I think it's beautiful because it is what I discover for myself. It's like, yeah, he's an analytical mind. He was one of the best thinkers in the 12. He had not much education, but he could think really well. And he was very analytical, maybe even skeptical at times too. And he didn't accept anything without first like giving it some reason and really looking at it. So yeah, so we will listen to a description of Thomas, or a little background story about Thomas that was given in the Urantia. It's another book. Urantia actually means like earth. It is a book that I use here because it is one of the very few books that actually have a lot of information about Thomas, and I love to share that. So it gives you a real impression in how it was having Thomas, having Thomas as one of the 12. So that's why it's good for. So what else are we going to do today? Because what is actually, how actually do we approach the Gospel of Thomas? Now there is a book that was translated, I think, from French into English, from Monsieur Leloup, and he wrote a beautiful book. Actually, I went through it. He translated it from, say, the Greek language into French, if I got that right. And so the thing that happened was that he looked at it, he looked for cross references in the Bible of what Thomas is saying. And he, say, came with his own background. He read Upanishads and more like this, came from the East, so to speak, in his spiritual tradition, but giving that to us in a way that is interesting as an angle to look at this. And you see a lot of similarities with what you know from the New Testament, with the letters to the Philippians, with Matthew, with Luke, with John, with, they're all there. They see Thomas had specific moments with Jesus, and he had, of course, his own relationship with Jesus. Now this matured in the time that he was with him, so he eventually spent a lot of time with Jesus, and he would ask him questions, and he would, and he made notes of those, and these are actually in the book that we're using. So that's one part. Now, one of the expressions. So there are probably 130 or something in there. So we only do 49 and 50 today because they're very much related, is what I saw. It's like they're very much related, but taking two expressions of Jesus and actually diving into the cross references in the Bible. Now, when I do that, it is like opening a door after a door after a door. Like, wow, I cannot believe what I'm reading. How beautiful this falls together. And all this, it's like it's a delight to let this come to you. So I hope you can join me in that, and how I receive this. Now, one of the expressions I'm reading, I still got this video that I made in Cyprus where you see actually here the background of a 2,000-year-old mosaic, where probably might be that Thomas was walking on it. But anyway, I read something while I'm sitting at the beach in a certain kind of object and reading to you the 50th expression. And then we're looking deeper at it. So that's something you can expect today too. Now, I got it very well organized. You can hear that. It's pretty cool to do it this way. I love it. So then, after hearing that, we go deeper into the expressions, because it is not just enough to listen to them. So if you really go for it and you read the commentary and you reflect on it yourself, something starts to happen. This makes me excited because of the recognition that you get with what is actually being shared, and how everything always comes back to the same thing, which is the recognition that you're a child of light. Like, yes, I recognize that. Thank you so much. So great. Wonderful. Yes. And in fact, it's like you see it reflected everywhere. No matter where I look, whether I use quantum physics, whether I use the Gospel of Thomas, it doesn't matter. It brings me to the same place, because literally it's like in the transparency of my mind, of course, my source is radiating right through it. And so the reflections I get are actually giving me that too. They're actually showing me my connectedness to every aspect of creation. Whether I see this in a timely setup as this, or whether I discover it in just a biblical phrase that I recognize and is so dear to me, it really does not matter. Okay, so we're listening first to the Urantia reading. I read in this Urantia, I read the section. See, the Urantia is divided in many papers. I don't know how many. And this is paper 139. And 139 is about all the apostles. So in 139, I read section 8. And this is like a subdivision of that chapter, of that paper. And this is about Thomas Didymus. From the book Urantia, here a piece about Thomas Didymus, which is, say, the Thomas of the Gospel of Thomas. Thomas Didymus. Thomas was the 8th apostle, and he was chosen by Philip. In later times, he has become known as Doubting Thomas, but his fellow apostles hardly looked upon him as a chronic doubter. True, he was a logical, skeptical type of mind, but he had a form of courageous loyalty which forbade those who knew him intimately to regard him as a trifling skeptic. When Thomas joined the apostles, he was 29 years old, he was married and had 4 children. Formerly he has been a carpenter and stonemason, but latterly he had become a fisherman and resided at Tarichea, situated on the west bank of the Jordan, where it flows out of the Sea of Galilee, and he was regarded as the leading citizen of his little village. He had little education, but he possessed a keen, reasoning mind, and was the son of excellent parents who lived at Tiberias. Thomas had the one truly analytical mind of the 12. He was the real scientist of the apostolic group. The early home life of Thomas had been unfortunate. His parents were not altogether happy in their married life, and this was reflected in Thomas' adult experience. He grew up having a very disagreeable and quarrelsome disposition. Even his wife was glad to see him join the apostles. She was relieved by the thought that her pessimistic husband would be away from home most of the time. Thomas also had a streak of suspicion which made it very difficult to get along peaceably with him. Peter was very much upset by Thomas at first, complaining to his brother Andrew that Thomas was mean, ugly, and always suspicious. But the better his associates knew Thomas, the more they liked him. They found he was superbly honest and unflinchingly loyal. He was perfectly sincere and unquestionably truthful, but he was a natural-born fault-finder and had grown up to become a real pessimist. His analytical mind had become cursed with suspicion. He was rapidly losing faith in his fellow man when he became associated with the 12 and thus came in contact with the noble character of Jesus. This association with the Master began at once to transform Thomas's whole disposition and to effect great changes in his mental reactions to his fellow man. Thomas' really great strength was his superb analytical mind, coupled with his unflinching courage when he had once made up his mind. His great weakness was his suspicious doubting, which he never fully overcame throughout his whole lifetime in the flesh. In the organization of the 12, Thomas was assigned to arrange and manage the itinerary, and he was an able director of the work and movements of the apostolic corps. He was a good executive, an excellent businessman, but he was handicapped by his many moods. He was one man one day and another man the next. He was inclined toward melancholic brooding when he joined the apostles, but contact with Jesus and the apostles largely cured him of his morbid introspection. Jesus enjoyed Thomas very much and had many long personal talks with him. His presence among the apostles was a great comfort to all honest doubters and encouraged many troubled minds to come into the kingdom, even if they could not wholly understand everything about the spiritual and philosophic phases of the teachings of Jesus. Thomas's membership in the 12 was a standing declaration that Jesus loved even honest doubters. The other apostles held Jesus in reverence because of some special and outstanding trait of his replete personality, but Thomas revered his master because of his superbly balanced character. Increasingly, Thomas admired and honored one who was so lovingly merciful, yet so inflexibly just and fair, so firm but never obstinate, so calm but never indifferent, so helpful and so sympathetic, but never meddlesome or dictatorial, so strong but at the same time so gentle, so positive but never rough or rude, so tender but never vacillating, so pure and innocent, but at the same time so virile, aggressive and forceful, so courageous but never rash or foolhardy, such a lover of nature but so free of all tendency to revere nature, so humorous and so playful but so free from levity and frivolity. It was this matchless symmetry of personality that so charmed Thomas. He probably enjoyed the highest intellectual understanding and personality appreciation of Jesus of any of the 12. In the councils of the 12, Thomas was always cautious, advocating a policy of safety first. But if his conservatism was voted down or overruled, he was always the first fearlessly to move out in execution of the program decided upon. Again and again would he stand out against some project as being foolhardy and presumptuous. He would debate to the bitter end, but when Andrew would put the proposition to a vote, and after the 12 would elect to do that which he had so strenuously opposed, Thomas was the first to say, "Let's go." He was a good loser. He did not hold grudges or nurse wounded feelings. Time and again did he oppose letting Jesus expose himself to danger. But when the Master would decide to take such risks, always was it Thomas who rallied the apostles with his courageous words. "Come on, comrades, let's go and die with him." Thomas was in some respect like Philip. He also wanted to be shown, but his outward expressions of doubt were based on entirely different intellectual operations. Thomas was analytical, not merely skeptical. As far as personal physical courage was concerned, he was one of the bravest among the 12. Thomas had some very bad days. He was blue and downcast at times. The loss of his twin sister when he was 9 years old had occasioned him with much youthful sorrow and had added to his temperamental problems of later life. When Thomas would become despondent, sometimes it was Nathaniel who helped him to recover, sometimes Peter, and not infrequently one of the Alphaeus twins. When he was most depressed, unfortunately, he always tried to avoid coming in direct contact with Jesus. But the Master knew all about this and had an understanding sympathy for his apostle when he was thus afflicted with depression and harassed by doubts. Sometimes Thomas would get permission from Andrew to go off by himself for a day or two. But he soon learned that such a course was not wise. He early found that it was the best, when he was downhearted, to stick close to his work and to remain near his associates. But no matter what happened in his emotional life, he kept right on being an apostle. When the time actually came to move forward, it was always Thomas who said, "Let's go." Thomas is the great example of a human being who has doubts, faces them, and wins. He had a great mind, and he was no carping critic. He was a logical thinker. He was the acid test of Jesus and his fellow apostles. If Jesus and his work had not been genuine, it would not have held a man like Thomas from the start to finish. He had a keen and sure sense of fact. At the first appearance of fraud or deception, Thomas would have forsaken them. Scientists may not fully understand all about Jesus and his work on earth, but there lived and worked with the Master and his human associates a man whose mind was that of a true scientist, Thomas Didymus, and he believed in Jesus of Nazareth. Thomas had such a trying time during the days of trial and crucifixion. He was for a reason in the depths of despair, but he rallied his courage, stuck to the apostles, and was present with them to welcome Jesus on the Sea of Galilee. For a while he succumbed to his doubting depression, but eventually rallied his faith and courage. He gave wise counsel to the apostles after Pentecost, and when persecution scattered the believers, went to Crete, to Cyprus, the North African coast, and Sicily, preaching the glad tidings of the kingdom and baptizing believers. And Thomas continued preaching and baptizing until he was apprehended by the agents of the Roman government and was put to death in Malta. Just a few weeks before his death, he had begun the writing of the life and teachings of Jesus. See, there's light and there's light. When my light starts to shine, my face becomes all transparent, I guess. So this is great. So you see, like, wow. Did you ever hear the description of Jesus like you just heard in the Urantia? It's like, it's so lovely. And this is in the description actually of Thomas, but since Thomas was looking at him as that, so lovely, so powerful, yet so gentle and so beautiful. You know, it's like, I love to hear that. Like, it totally touches me to hear it. And so you just never know where it comes from. And I haven't used the Urantia much in say, in the moments that we come together, but it is a great, say, tool to come to the depths of what's actually a recognition of the love for your brother. That's basically where it comes down to. It's like, whatever way that can come to you, whatever is happening, it's always like, just for that, to open yourself up to receive the love that actually is given you by your brother, or what you recognize in your brother. So that is, to me, it's always overwhelming, and which is great. I love to be overwhelmed with that. So here it happens too. So that's lovely. And now, next part in what I'd love to share with you is the expression number 50 from the book, but I do this a little bit in a different way first, and then afterwards we're going to start really taking a look at it. And only see, the purpose of all of it is the same. It is not that we're going to know everything about Thomas or know everything about this and that. It's like, please, no. The thing that happens here is that there are so many doors opening up in the recognition of the love for each other and for the recognition of the light. Like, you could even say, like, was Thomas an historic figure? Well, it doesn't really matter. Are you an historic figure? Yeah, well, you appear to be walking around here for a moment, but in the end, you're not that either. And it's the same with Thomas. Like, whatever you can contribute here, whatever you can do in being yourself here, extending the love that you are and recognizing that in your brother, that's everything. That's great. That's wonderful. So that recognition can only happen now. It does not have to do with that you know everything about Thomas. So it's just right here. Yeah, whatever we use to let us be brought here in order to open up is totally, say, supportive or constructive, you could say. Now, some of these expressions that we're going to share from the book, from Monsieur Leloup, is really, say, they're all expressions from Jesus that Thomas said, like, okay, this is too important. I got to write this down. Wait a minute, Jesus, I got to write this down first, because what you're telling me now is just blowing my mind. I'm writing it down. So that's exactly what he did. He probably did it a little bit later when Jesus already resurrected, as you read in the Urantia. But it was important to him. That's why he wrote it down. And you can imagine why when you read them. All right, so starting to share a video with you in which I prepared this a little bit. It's probably a couple of minutes, and then we come back to take another look at the expressions and the commentary. Yes, there are French subtitles here too. The Gospel of Thomas, Expressions of Jesus. It holds true and is revealed within their image. If they ask you who you are, say, "We are its children, the beloved of the Father, the living one." If they ask you, "What is the sign of the Father in you?" say, "It is movement, and it is repose." So it's like, it moves me. Where do I come from? I'm born from the light, where the light is born. Like, I'm a whole part of the light. I'm completely included in the light. I'm that. I'm not anything else. That is where I come from. And it moves me, and it brings me rest. It completely reposes me. So it's, no matter where you are, no matter what is going on, if people ask you where you come from, we are born of light. We are born of light. We're not born in the flesh. We are born of light. You recognize that. When you admit it and teach it and demonstrate it, this is exactly what is going on. And this is exactly what is given you. So, and then it is like, that is what moves me. That is what brings me into, that is what brings this into expression. That is what the light is. That's where all the beauty is. And that is what you are. So it has nothing to do with a limited image of sickness and death. Oh my God, no. So I love this. So thank you so much so far. It's so great to share this with you.
We can hear you.
Pas de son.
Okay, so thank you for doing that, for saying that. The great thing here is, like, yes, it went too fast. You could not follow it. It is too quick. True, but it was in there, and that was the setup. So now, taking another look at it, we have time to actually see what it says, and it takes a bit more time than than you expect. Like, it is not just reading through it, is what I'm saying. Expressions of Jesus, Gospel of Thomas, children of light. Okay, so what we just heard was this Logion or expression or reason 50. Jeshua said, if they ask you from where you come, say, we were born of the light, there where light is born of light. Now, this, of course, is an incredible expression. And it has many references too. So we'll see that later. But here is the expression. We were born of the light, there where light is born of light. And this is an expression that you could say like, sounds just like, for instance, love created me like itself. You know, love created, I am that which created me. Love created me like itself. There's just very much the same expression. But see, to me, something is opened up as an symbolic way of expressing this. It's like it refers to that what has no end. You come from it while you actually are it. We've seen this before too. Like in fact, what we saw. Was it yesterday? Oh my God, time flies. We were looking at that too. It's like it's the Alpha and the Omega. Like actually these movements are continuous. Born of the light, being in the light, being where light is born of light. So yeah, that in itself is an something to ponder, to feel, to take time for, to actually see what that means. Like love created me like itself is one expression from the Course in Miracles. Then it's like love created me like itself is something that you get lost in completely if you allow that to hear that. Now this is lovely. So this expression is like a koan too. So that's another way of saying it. Where we were born of the light, there where light is born of light. It holds true and is revealed within their image. If they ask you who you are, say, we are its children, the beloved of the Father, the living one. If they ask you what is the sign of the Father in you, say, it is movement and it is repose. It is movement, it is peace, all the peace possible, and it stands still, like it is repose, it is completely at peace, but it is moving at the same time. So that's a beautiful expression. Now we're going to look at some biblical references, especially for this one, of course, like with where the light is born of light and created in the image of the Father. We are the children, like I'm the son of the Father. The living one would bring back a lot of references to Bible, of course. You recognize this from what is written in the scripture. Sorry for that. So here, to mention a couple, like I looked these up and I copied them for you. Like in here, just see what happens with you if these references are read to you. When you discover actually what they say, it's amazing to me what happens. And if a man says I'll keep my hands off my mouse here. If a man says anything to you, say to him, they are needed by our Lord, and immediately he will send them here. But they did not have a son. This is Luke 1:27. They did not have a son because Elizabeth was infertile and both of them were advanced in their ages. Like, okay. I'm not saying anything. Luke 16:8. And our Lord praised the evil steward because he acted wisely. For the children of this world, in this their generation, are wiser than the children of light. That's an interesting expression too. See what it says? The children of this world, in this their generation, are wiser than the children of light. Luke 17. So also you, whenever you have done all those things that were commanded of you, you should say, we are unprofitable servants, because we have done that which we were obligated to do. Like, we take no credit for what we do. We don't have to take any credit for it. John 3:8. For the Father himself loves you because you have loved me. This is what Jesus said. For the Father himself loves you because you have loved me and have believed that I have come forth from union with God. You recognize your oneness, like you recognize the oneness of the Christ with God. If you recognize that as a reality, it is so for you. For I have proceeded from union with the Father, and I have come into the world, and again I leave the world, and I'm going to join the Father. John 8. Joshua answered and said to them, even if I testify about myself, my testimony is true, because I know from where I have come and where I am going. This is the light reference. I know where I come from and I know where I'm going. But you do not know from where I have come and where I am going. John 12. While the light is in you, believe in the light, that you might be the children of light. While the light is with you, believe in the light, that you might be the children of light. See how many references there are, it's unbelievable. For you were formerly darkness, but now you are light in our Lord. Therefore so walk as children of light. And 1 Thessalonians 5. For you are all children of light and children of the day, and you are not children of the night, neither children of darkness. Romans 9. For it shall be in place where they were called, not my people. There they shall be called children of the living God. Romans 8:14. For those who are led by the Spirit of God, these are the sons of God. For those who are led by the Spirit of God, these are the sons of God. That's the simplicity, in fact, of listening. Oh yeah. Now, here is the commentary of the writer of the book, Monsieur Leloup, as I call him here. In a famous conversation with the philosopher Motophilov, who came to visit him in his hermitage, Saint Seraphim said that Gnosis is an experience of light. But his discourse was not about the nature of light, it was about the participation in its uncreated radiance. For Saint Gregory Palamas and the monks of Mount Athos, the very goal of Christian life is the experience of the uncreated light. They relate it to the stories of the burning bush, Mount Tabor, and the day of resurrection. It holds true, the Logion tells us, like the inner meaning of Easter morning. This recalls a passage from the Chandogya Upanishad, with the numbers. The light which shines from beyond the sky, beyond the highest of the highest worlds, beyond everything that is the truth, is in truth the same light that shines inside human beingness. The ancient triple question, where do I come from? Where am I going? Who am I? Finds an unequivocal response in this Logion. You come from the light. You are going toward the light. You are the light. This is the reality of the living Sun in us, who abides in the very heart of changing appearances. The sign of our link with this luminous reality is movement and repose. This is a union of opposites, the resolution of the seeming contradiction between action, contemplation, calmness within action, vitality within repose. So it is like a dance. It brings you this, it is bringing opposites together. It is the end of a dualistic way of thinking. It brings you back to your nature. It brings you back to the light. It gives you the opportunity to join in that light. You know, it's like everything is coming back to that. And especially in this moment of your transformation, you hear about this continuously. I'm expressing this in all kinds of ways, but it's like, yeah, now it comes closer and closer to you to see that as your reality and to say, recognize yourself as a child of light more than anything else. Who cares about the rest in that sense? Like, who cares about this world or any form of limitation that you see imposed when you hold on to what you are not? So the transformative capacity, or the healing capacity, you could say, of these expressions are without limit, because literally you have every opportunity to let this speak to you and help you to recognize your true essence, you could say. And that's what I love about these. One way or another, it is spending time with them or letting them come to you, letting them talk to you is really the invitation of this. Spending time with it in the sense of, yeah, read it over and over. Yeah, read some of the biblical references. I read them to you now, but stay with some of them and see what they're actually telling you. Because in fact, it is all a possibility for this communication. And suddenly there it is. And suddenly it takes you. And this one moment in which it takes you, you could say, is everything. That's literally the salvation of the world, if you want. It's like, that's the occurrence. That is what is given. That is what is real about you. So it is not any other thing. So I love that. I really think it's beautiful the way this is expressed in the Logions as we see it, and in the commentary too. I love it. So yeah, when I read this, like in this Logion 50, I looked back at 49, and some way or another that was a necessary step too. You will see it when I start reading it, and you see also the references as well as the commentary. The commentary has a very interesting, connotation regarding monkship that puts it right in a whole different perspective altogether. So the expression that's being used, that's the Greek word for monk. I don't know exactly what it is. We'll read it in a second, but it literally is an expression of wholeness, like whole instead of anything else. So it's like you, in your monkship, you could say, like, it's whole-mindedness. You come to your wholeness, your oneness. And that's a nice. I never heard that before, but I love it to see it like that. Logion 49. Jeshua said, "Blessed are you, the whole ones, and the chosen ones. You will find the kingdom, for you came from there, and you will return. Blessed are you, the whole ones, and the chosen ones. You will find the kingdom, for you came from there, and you will return." See, there's no sense of accomplishment here. It is a recognition of what already is. I think that's the greatest in this expression. You are blessed, recognizing that you're one, say one of us, like you're one, that you are chosen and that you have answered. This will give you the kingdom because you came from there. Like, however, we see this in other biblical references too. It's like, however could you return to something that you were not part of before? That would be impossible. Okay, so I'm not. Oh, no, wait. Sorry, I pressed the wrong button. Well, finally, I can use my mouse. Here it is. So the biblical references first. John 8. Jeshua said unto them, "If God were your Father, would you have loved me? You would have loved me. For I have proceeded from God and have not come for my own pleasure, but He has sent me." And this is something else. Listen to this. Like Jeshua said unto them, "If God were your Father, you would have loved me. For I have proceeded from God and have not come of my own pleasure, but He has sent me." I love that. Can you feel the way this is formulated? Like it says, if God were your Father, you would have loved me. See, it is all pointing at the recognition of your Christhood, or the recognition of seeing where you are coming from, and recognizing that there is just one of us instead of something else. That's what I love about this. And then you see this back in the Logion too, of course. "If God were your Father, you would have loved me, for I have proceeded from God and have not come of my own pleasure, but He has sent me." It's like, well, I know better places than to come to planet Earth. I know better places to go to. So it was not for my own pleasure that I was here. No, I was sent here. Okay, sorry. John 16. "For the Father Himself loves you because you have loved me and have believed that I have come forth from union with God. For I have proceeded from union with the Father, and I have come into the world, and again I leave the world, and I'm going to join the Father." See, that's also a circular description. You could say, like, if you want to see it as form, you see the mosaic shining through the background. You know, this is like an infinite loop. You see that the expressions that we're sharing are actually exactly the same. So it's like it's inspired by an endless loop, you could say, of circles, which come back, like the Alpha and the Omega are one. It comes back. It is oneness. It is not. It's not a cross or anything. No, there's a continuity in it that is something else. For the Father himself loves you because you have loved me and have believed that I have come forth from union with God. So here's your inclusion in that love. That's what it says here in John 16. I love it. It's just amazing. So here's the commentary of Monsieur Leloup. Blessed and fortunate are the monachos. Monachos, that's the Greek word for monks. And we have translated this word as simple or whole rather than as monks or those in solitude. So it's like whole-mindedness, simple, the simple ones or the whole ones. Like oneness is simple, it is not complex. Complexities of the human mind, the ego mind. Blessed and fortunate are the monachos. We have translated this word as simple and whole, rather than as monks, or those in solitude. Solitude is one only condition, the condition of this process of unification of all our being, so that we become truly undivided and monos, the image of the one. The monachos are simultaneously separate from all and one with all, as Evagrius Ponticus said. It is this solitude that opens into the heart of the world, that intercedes for the salvation of all beings. The monachos seek and find the one who reigns in all and everything, the root and the end, the Alpha and the Omega. To be chosen over and over again is to open to this great wave of life that is vibrating through us, from head to toe, from birth to death. It is the one with Alpha and Omega. It is the Alpha and the Omega. So the recognition of the Alpha and the Omega is like, well, there's this movement in that too. It's like, the beginning and the end come together as one, because it is one. Like the truth is not divided into a beginning and an end. So the eternity, like eternity as a movement like this too, it's not different than the background that I chose here for the class. It's like there's a movement in there of eternity, and that as a sign is of course interesting, but as an experience of seeing that it actually works like that could only be seen in this moment and not any other time. Like it's not going to happen in the future. Now this is the same with Thomas then. It's like he appeared and he's appearing as we speak, and to come and bring this to us in time. Like we literally see him as one of us since he is. And the love for him is his love for his master. The love for his master is the love of the master for God. And so it is like my love for God. See how say it's so integrated, you could say. It's so part of you. If you start to recognize that, you see it literally everywhere. And this cannot be experienced enough. Like you would want to expand this experience forever. And that is, of course, what is happening. Like there is no opposite to that. I try to not express it in the same words as I use, but it seems to be so recognizable that it comes down to it. It's just totally amazing. I love that. It's great. It's great. So, well, thank you, Thomas, for bringing this in, and thank you for hearing about your relationship with Jesus and with your other apostles, and with your wife, who was happy that you turned to be an apostle and had to go for some time. Like, yeah, you go to Jesus. That's great. Yeah, come back. Yeah, take your time. Why not? I was like, well, that was very, very helpful for the atmosphere in the house at certain points. But anyway, that was more like a joke. So thank you so much for your attention here with Thomas and say all the aspects of it that we looked at today. So there are more expressions, and so it's great to use the book because it's a great book for study. Of study is not really the word I want to use. More like if you read enough of these Logions and you stick with them, you see how they start to affect you and help you to let go of anything that you think is in the way of fully joining in your communication with your source. So that's great. Next week we will follow up with some more expressions, and who knows what will happen then in expressing that. So thank you so much for being part of this, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you for that.